It was one of those stinking hot Thursdays in Adelaide that feels like someone draped a wet doona over the entire city and told the sun to turn up the wattage. The kind of heat where even the flies can't be bothered buzzing in your face, they just hover nearby looking depressed. I'd just finished a 10-hour shift at the hospital, the sort where your feet feel like they've aged 20 years and your scrubs are so damp they could be wrung out and used to water the lawn. I rolled into the driveway, killed the engine, and sat there for a second with the aircon fading, trying to scrape together the motivation to get out of the car. Then I noticed the letterbox. More specifically, I noticed something poking out of it, thick green paper, the Commonwealth Bank logo stamped like it owned the place. Looked official enough to be important, so I trudged over, peeled it free, and ripped it open right there on the veranda. I was expecting maybe a reply to the credit limit increase I'd asked for last year and completely forgotten about. Maybe even a promotion letter for my loyalty. Something boring, something standard. But the first line sucker punched me so hard I nearly redecorated the garden with last night's leftover butter chicken. Congratulations, Mrs. Sharon Marie Thompson, your personal loan of $87,000 has been approved and funds disbursed on the 14th of January. I stared at the words so long they started to blur. My stomach dropped, my legs went wobbly, and the kind of cold sweat you only get during a medical emergency prickled at the back of my neck. I read it again, slower this time, like maybe the heat was making me hallucinate. But no, same words, same gut punch, a loan, $87,000, in my name. I hadn't applied for a loan. I hadn't even thought about applying for a loan. I'm the woman who still uses a spreadsheet to track groceries. Even the idea that I'd suddenly splashed nearly 90 grand on something was laughable. And that's when the panic kicked in. I marched inside, kicked off my shoes, one landing God knows where, and grabbed my phone. First instinct, call Darren. My husband, my partner of 12 long, financially exhausting, patience-testing years. The same Darren who was supposedly up at Roxby Downs on his swing, except he'd been working back late on his R&R days more often than not. I dialed. Straight to voicemail. Typical. I dialed again. Same thing. Like the man's phone was allergic to responsibility. Then my landline rang, which never happens unless it's scammers or Darren's mum. Sure enough, Valma's voice blasted through like a kookaburra on steroids. Shazzy love, you're an absolute angel. The bank just rang, the money's gone through. They're fixing me roof next week and I can finally pay off those rotten credit cards. I always said you were the daughter I never had. My whole body went stiff. Valma, what money? The loan, love. Darren said you co-signed so I wouldn't have to pay such high interest on account of me pension. You're a saint, Shaz. A bloody saint. I hung up. Not politely, not gently. I just ended the call mid-sob and stood there shaking, the phone still in my hand like it was evidence in a crime scene, which, as it turned out, it bloody was. 12 years I'd been with Darren. 12 years of patching up every disaster his family ever created. 2 weddings for his sister, both to the same man, both equally disastrous. 3 stints in rehab for his brother, each more expensive than the last. His father's funeral, where Valma insisted on the fancy mahogany casket from Carabetta's because Kevin deserved dignity. And every time, every bloody time, it was, just until we're back on our feet, Shaz, just a little help, Shaz, you know we appreciate you, Shaz. I wasn't a wife. I was a walking ATM with a pulse. And now the prick had forged my signature. Full identity theft. A loan in my name only, no co-signing, no shared liability. Pure fraud. Pure betrayal. My hands were trembling so hard I could barely unlock my banking app, but when I did, there it was. $87,000 deposited into an account I didn't recognize, then transferred out the same bloody day. Vanished. And with that, something inside me snapped. Clean break. Like a bone that had been weakened for years and finally gave way. That was the exact moment Sharon the doormat died. And Sharon the wrecking ball was born. Darren rolled in just after midnight on Friday, long after I'd stopped pacing the kitchen and worn a track into the linoleum. I heard his ute whiz into the driveway, headlights sweeping across the lounge like searchlights at a prison break. Then the door opened and in he swaggered, smelling like Red Bull, ciggies, cheap rum, and bad decisions. He tried to kiss me, actually leaned in like nothing was wrong, like he hadn't just detonated an $87,000 bomb in my life. I stepped back, picked up the loan documents from the table, and slid them across to him with one finger. The movement was slow, deliberate, like I was dealing cards in a pub brawl and fully prepared to flip the table. Explain. That one word hit him harder than a fly kick from a Muay Thai champion. He froze with his work bag half off his shoulder, eyes darting to the envelope, then back to me. His face drained so fast the freckles stood out like little islands on a pale sea. I could almost see the calculations running behind his eyes. Lie, confess, deny, run. Then came the performance. Oh, babe, Shaz, oh God, I can explain. His voice wobbled, his eyes glistened, and suddenly he was giving me the full Darren Thompson remorse special. The trembling lip, the choked breath, the whole supermarket value emotional breakdown. He should have been on Neighbours with that level of melodrama. Start talking, I said, because in about 30 seconds I'm ringing the cops. He dropped into a chair like a puppet with its strings cut, head in his hands, elbows on the table. Mum was gonna lose the house, he mumbled through his fingers. The bank sent a default notice. She's got lung cancer, Shaz. The oxygen tanks cost a fortune. Centrelink stuffed up her pension again. She was suicidal. I panicked. I laughed. Honestly, I didn't mean to. It just burst out of me, sharp and ugly, the kind of laugh you hear from someone who's finally cracked. Panicked. Darren, you didn't burn toast. You committed fraud. You forged my signature. You stole my identity. That's not panic, that's prison. His head shot up. I didn't steal, babe, come on, you've always helped before. You paid for Crystal's wedding, you paid for Jaden's rehab. I slammed my hand on the table. And I'm still paying off the credit cards from Jaden's last rehab, you selfish prick. 12 years I've carried your family. 12 years I've bailed every single one of you out. My voice broke and steadied again. I paid for your dad's funeral. Valma wanted the mahogany casket with the gold handles, $4 grand. I ate me goring for 6 months so your mum could bury her husband like royalty. He had the audacity, the pure shameless nerve, to look ashamed. He wiped his nose on his sleeve and muttered, "It's family, Shaz." "No, Darren," I said, leaning across the table, every word ice cold. "Family is loyalty. Family is respect. Family is not forging my signature so your mother can keep smoking 2 packs a day and playing the pokies till the highway in kicks her out." I pointed at the paperwork. Family is not saddling me with an $87,000 debt for the rest of my natural life. He was properly crying now. Real snot, real tears, chest heaving. "I thought you'd understand. You always understand." I didn't know what else to do. I looked at him, really looked at him, and it hit me like a slap. This wasn't one mistake. This was who he was. Who he'd always been. A grown man whose first instinct was to hand his problems to me like I was some magical adult who'd fix everything while he ducked responsibility. I bent down so we were eye to eye. And that's the problem, Darren. I did understand. Every time, every disaster, every crisis. I understood, and I fixed, and I paid. You never once stopped to think about what any of it cost me. I stepped back. I'm done understanding. I'm done saving you. He reached for my hands, wet-eyed and desperate, but I pulled him back like he was contagious. I walked out of the kitchen without another word, shut myself in the spare room, and opened my laptop. If he could commit a crime, then I could damn well report one. While he sobbed himself to sleep on the couch, I typed, "Forgery Laws South Australia," into Google. Sleep didn't even cross my mind. Saturday morning I was up before the sun, before the birds, before even the tradies had started arguing with their utes. 5 a.m., and I was already on my second coffee, standing in the kitchen in my dressing gown like a woman possessed. The house was dead quiet except for Darren snoring on the couch, sounding like a lawnmower choking on gravel. I wasn't shaking anymore. I wasn't crying. I was cold, calm, focused. The kind of focused you only get after hitting rock bottom and discovering a trapdoor underneath. First call of the day, Commonwealth Bank fraud line. "Hi, my name is Sharon Thompson, and I need to report identity theft." I said it calmly, like I was ordering a chicken schnitty at the pub. I explained everything, the forged signature, the disbursed loan, the dodgy account the money went to. They asked questions. I answered. They asked for evidence. I sent photos. No stuttering, no panic, just the facts. Within minutes they froze the loan, flagged the account, and escalated it to their fraud investigations team. The woman on the phone said, "You did the right thing calling early." I nearly laughed. Early? I'd been lied to for 12 years, this was the first time I wasn't late. Second call, Elizabeth Police Station. I told them the whole story again, identity theft, fraud, forged documents. The sergeant on the line didn't even sound surprised. In fact, he interrupted halfway through and said, "Is the family name Thompson?" Yes, he sighed. Yep, thought so. Apparently Valma had been on their radar for years, Centrelink issues, suspicious withdrawals, a few mysterious injuries that didn't match her. I fell in the shower, stories. Hearing that didn't make me feel vindicated. It just made me realize I'd spent over a decade drowning in a swamp I should have walked away from ages ago. Around 8 a.m., a police car rolled up. Not sirens blaring, not dramatic, just a quiet, steady arrival like they were delivering mail. I opened the door and greeted them like old friends. They came in, took statements, took photos of the loan documents and my driver's license, asked a few follow-up questions. Darren was still dead asleep on the couch, mouth open, one sock missing, absolutely oblivious to the downfall unfolding 3 meters away. Then one of the cops nudged his foot. "Mate, wake up." Darren jolted upright, blinking at the uniforms like a kid caught stealing lollies from Woolies. What's going on? I wish I'd filmed the look on his face. Pure panic, pure realization, pure, oh shit, moment. Before he could start the waterworks again, an all too familiar sound echoed from the driveway, a rattling metal trolley. And then, like the final boss entering a video game, came Valma. She was marching up my driveway, oxygen tank bouncing behind her like she'd stolen it from the hospital, a family-sized box of cherry ripes clutched in the other hand. Because nothing says, sorry for committing fraud, like confectionery. She took one look at the police inside my house and unleashed a wail that could have woken the entire suburb. "You're destroying my boy, after everything we've done for you." Her voice shot up an octave on the word, everything, like it was physically painful to admit she'd ever benefited from me. I stepped outside. "Valma, the only thing you've ever done is drain me dry. You raised a son who thinks fraud is easier than saying no to his mummy." She swung her oxygen tank at me like a battering ram. I jumped back, and the female constable stepped between us with a hand up. "Ma'am, put the tank down." Neighbors were already spilling out like it was bin night entertainment. Mrs. Newen next door had her phone out, live streaming the whole thing with commentary. Old Kev across the road was yelling, "Go Shaz. Give hell," and someone, God bless them, created a group chat on the spot called Sharon's Revenge. By lunchtime it had 400 members and was discussing t-shirt designs. Darren tried one last attempt at a heartfelt plea while the police photographed the documents. "Shaz, please," he begged. "If you press charges, I'll go to jail. Think of the kids." "We don't have kids, Darren," I said, deadpan. "And thank God for that." He opened his mouth and closed it again like a stunned mullet. "I am thinking of someone," I said. "I'm thinking of me. For the first time in 12 years. The cops escorted him out. Valma followed shrieking like a magpie in mating season, and the street erupted into a chorus of whispers and camera clicks. And all I felt was relief. Pure, uncut relief. By Monday, the house was mine again, truly mine. The locks had been changed, Darren's ute keys were handed over to the police, and every bag he owned was stacked on the front lawn under a tarp like a sad yard sale. I'd paid the locksmith double to come out on a public holiday, and it was worth every cent just to watch him grumble and shrug while I sipped my coffee and admired my new fortress. The spare room was still my wall room, half converted into a home gym, with punching bag and weights already calling my name. The phone never stopped ringing, though. Valma had somehow managed to get my number from somewhere, calling from blocked numbers every hour. Dog, slut, home wrecker, her insults were creative, repetitive, and deeply entertaining once I realized none of them could touch me. I saved the best voicemails for the restraining order application. Each one was evidence, each one a little cherry on top of her own legal nightmare. Darren's sister, Crystal, tried emotional blackmail next. "Mum's in hospital with stress, it's your fault," she whined. I laughed. Actually laughed. Last time she was in hospital with stress, she was at the Adelaide casino refusing to answer her phone, I reminded her. "Your family specializes in drama, Crystal. You're welcome for my patience." She hung up on me. Victory. The bank finally reversed the entire loan. Identity theft has perks, particularly when you've built a paper trail thicker than a phone book. My credit file is being repaired. The Commonwealth Bank is chasing Darren and Valma for the money. Good luck with that. I can already imagine Darren trying to explain his life choices to a bank officer without breaking down. Hilarious. I'm sitting on my own couch now, finally able to breathe, drinking a Cooper's Clear and eating salt and vinegar chips like a woman who's finally won her own life back. The TV is on whatever I want. The home gym is calling me. The spare room no longer feels like a bunker, it feels like a launch pad. And there's even a date next Friday, a paramedic from work who's been asking for 2 years. I always said no because I was married, but now I can finally say yes without a trace of guilt. As for Darren and Valma, their lives have gone to chaos without me to smooth every disaster. They're apparently sleeping on a cousin's couch in Elizabeth, arguing over who gets the good pillow. Jaden, Darren's brother, is already trying to hit him up for money. The family group chat imploded spectacularly, half of them calling me a hero, the other half calling me Satan. I left that circus and created a new one. Just me, Sharon's fresh start, I called it. Members, 1, admin, me, rules, my life, my way. I'm 41 next birthday. And for the first time since I was 29, the future actually looks like mine. Real, unencumbered, and thrillingly uncertain. No one else's disasters looming over me. No forged signatures, no unending financial obligations, no emotional blackmail. Just me, finally me. I think back over those 12 years. 12 years of carrying an entire circus on my back while smiling, nodding, and working extra shifts. I think about every wedding, every rehab stint, every funeral, every dollar, every me-goring dinner. And I realize something, I should have kicked them all to the curb years ago. Not one more cent, not one more favor, not one more tear, not one more second spent cleaning up their mess. I raise my beer to the empty kitchen and the quiet house, the only witnesses being my plants and my slowly spinning ceiling fan. Here's to the women who finally say, enough. Who decide they're not just survivors, they're warriors, they're wrecking balls, they're architects of their own damn lives. Who take the chaos and spin it into freedom. I take a long sip of my Cooper's Clear, bite into another chip, and smile. For the first time in years, I feel something I thought I'd never feel again. Unshakable, unbreakable, unflinching peace. The kind of peace that tastes like chips, beer, and self-respect. And I know, without a doubt, that life ahead will be mine to shape. No forged loans, no manipulative family. No Darren. Just me, and for once, that is more than enough. Here's to fresh starts. Here's to boundaries. Here's to thriving, not just surviving. Cheers.